Welcome, welcome to the Hard Skills Show, where we discuss how to develop the most challenging soft skills required to navigate today's leadership complexities and tomorrow's unknowns. I'm your host, Dr. Mira Brancu. Decision-making dilemmas, feelings of overwhelm, fear of the unknown. We've all experienced these challenges as leaders. Now, women sometimes experience these more often because we've absorbed all of these unhelpful scripts about our abilities that actually aren't true. How do we flip the script? Dr. Sohee Jun will share her experiences and expertise for how to overcome the professional anxieties that disrupt your peace and hold you back. And my new Millennials Workbook for Navigating Workplace Politics is out. It's been published. Get your copy today. Seasons 6 to 9 are all dedicated to this topic, and season 6 is all about positive politics. And I really feel like Dr. Sohee will address that by giving us some tips on how to work through your stuff to engage effectively with others. So let me introduce her. Dr. Sohee Jun is a premier leadership coach for women, a mindset expert, a best-selling author, a corporate leadership facilitator, a TEDx and keynote speaker, and a thought leader and contributor to Forbes Coaches Council. She brings a PhD and a master's in organizational psychology and executive and leadership experiences at organizations ranging from NASA Jet Propulsion Lab to Bank of America to Warner Brothers Entertainment. So she's also the author of The Aligned Mindset, which, by the way, just came out today. Woohoo! So I'm super excited that I get to have her and I get to talk to her on the very first day that her book is out. Welcome and great to have you on the show.
Mira, thank you so much. It is a very dynamic day, and I'm really looking forward to being in conversation with you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And remind me, how did we meet? There's so many different ways, and I was racking my brains this morning when I was writing out, the questions that I might be thinking about asking you, and I think I know.
Yeah, well,
sure.
let me jog your memory. It's the Forefront community of like-minded people, and we were introduced through that community.
That's what I thought. Yes. So Forefront is kind of like the second generation brainchild of Marshall Goldsmith, who, best-selling author, internationally renowned executive coach and educator. And he had his 100 Coaches agency. And then from there, the next generation of leaders, thought leaders, and folks within the leadership space is where we connected through Forefront. Yeah. So.
Right. Yeah.
Super excited. So let's start with some sort of level setting around this topic, because decision-making dilemmas, feelings of overwhelm, fear of the unknown, insecurities, this is what a lot of humble leaders especially experience, right? So why do you focus specifically on women, and especially high achieving women, when it comes to this space?
Yeah, I think that that's a really great question to start with, because I always coach from lived experience. And in my world of living in the corporate space, I led teams and I felt all of those challenges really intimately, Mira. I'm talking about staying up late at night because I was fearful of making a decision, whether it was about my career or what people would think about me or how to lead a team, and all the different ways that that shows up in everyday work life. And I think that that's what I want people to know, is that even if you're successful in whatever ways that you define success, you will feel these levels of fear and indecision and challenges. And really, that's the premise of the second book, The Aligned Mindset. And no surprise why mindset is at front and center, because in my research with the highly successful women that are in my book that contributed, but also in my coaching, I've been coaching for over 25 years now, and I work specifically with high achieving women because we live with that indecision. And when you understand the power of the mindset, when you lock into that and can use it, it can really catapult people forward in ways that they didn't realize.
Yeah. So why do women live with that indecision?
Mm. I think that it stems, I love to answer it by saying there's a constellation of factors, and there may be some unique contributors to the individual, the woman or person. And what I know to be true is that a lot of women, and this is, a little bit genderized through the research that I've done and through my coaching, is that we tend to socialize and want to get approval and the external validation. And this is through years of conscious and unconscious messages that we've received growing up, whether it's in our own immediate household or externally from the world, and perhaps both. Many of us grapple with the want and approval of others and socializing our ideas, which looks like, for example, Mira, hey, I want to write this book and it's this topic. What do you think? Even though we might know it in our gut that this is a book worth writing, or it's a project worth pitching, or a business worth starting, or what have you, fill in the blank, we want to go out and get the external validation. And it's largely part of our socialization and how the messages that we grow up with.
Yeah, I appreciate that you brought that up. Because a lot of times I feel like the leadership coaching, executive coaching, leadership development programs for women don't touch on that enough. And so then the message is, let me fix your faults instead of let's acknowledge that where you are is a result of a combination of who you are plus your socialized self, your socialized identity, the way that women are, taught from a very early age, more often than men, to question themselves, to question their reality, to question their ability, to stay small, to not speak up and not take up too much space. And all of these things, when it sort of like compounds and compounds and compounds on each other, makes us honestly truly question our decision making, our reality. Are we doing the right thing? And also because women, the higher they go in leadership, are scrutinized more, they're more harshly judged, right? Then of course we're going to be more worried that our decision is going to cause this kind of negative judgment or questioning or that kind of thing. So it's an interaction with our environment that is creating this sort of complex
Yeah.
pretzeling of ourselves. And it sounds like your entire focus, which is mine as well, we're passionate about it, is to unpretzel ourselves a little out of that, right?
Yeah, I'm a visual thinker and I love that imagery of the pretzel, and it's so tightly wound up and there's many threads to it. And the work that I do and why I love the work of this podcast, Mira, is that it's about bringing people back to their innate selves. That when you add in, I love what you said about it is years and years, and there are external macro factors that contribute to that. It releases the pressure valve of saying like, oh, wow, it isn't all me. I'm not crazy. And I have these challenges that are both from the things that I've heard and maybe the values that I adopted that were not mine when you question it. And I do a lot of values work with women as well. It's like, let's identify what those are because that allows you to make intentional choices. And so maybe it's the values you adopted from your family of origin or people around you or the workplaces that you are in and have been in. So again, I wish I could say it's such an easy solve and an easy solution. It is a constellation of factors that I think makes it really interesting to work in partnership with women. And it's obviously work so worth doing because when we're able to quiet that noise or get, I would say, more into like giving ourselves the validation that we need to make our choices, that's when we can step into our power and really own our decisions in a way that we hadn't or women hadn't before.
Yeah, yeah, that's very powerful. I want to dig into your aligned mindset stuff, but before we get there,
Yeah.
you mentioned you have been a coach for 25 years, way
Mhm.
before it was cool to be a coach,
Yes.
and that you come at it from a lived experience. And that is what drives you also. So I would love to hear kind of 25 years ago, what came to a head? What were you thinking about, like in terms of your transition into coaching? How are you experiencing the world of work and your own sort of career trajectory? And how did you sort of get to this place where this is what I want to do?
Yeah, that I there's so many questions in there, Mira. So if I don't answer one, you're gonna have to ping
That's
me, be
fine.
like, answer this one. You know, I coach from lived experience, as I said, because I walk the path that these women walk or have walked. And for me, it looked like starting really early. Look, I am an immigrant from South Korea, and that meant that there were a lot of learned values and family expectations that come with being a South Korean, not born in the US. And so, what I learned through my teenage and college, high school years and into college is I really needed to own what was driving me. And it wasn't what I thought initially, which was, hey, mom and dad, I'm going to please you and do the medical degree route. And I think a lot of us, especially immigrants, want to do their parents proud and take that track. And for me, it was the first step in saying, I actually am not interested in that. I have to own that. And the decisions behind that, right? Which is again the first step. Like what is it that I want to do truly? What drives me? And then how do I communicate that um, in a way that positions me for like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm not going to ask for permission in a clear and kind way. And so that was the first step in my journey of really finding this path that it lights me up every day and that I say I have the honor of doing. So I got off the track of the medical degree and pivoted to psychology in college. I mean, listen, I was studying psychology anyway with minor in all the sciences, so it wasn't a hard pivot, but a really, really important one. So that set off my career.
Yeah, yeah. I can relate. We've talked about this. I'm an immigrant too, not from South Korea or an Asian descent, so that makes things different. You know, you have a different lens than I do in the US. But there are some sort of like immigrant experiences around wanting to not disappoint your parents who have just started a new life, specifically not just for them, but for you as well. And the pressure to please is heavy, and then on top of that, the pressure to please as a woman, it just adds like multiple identities around this pressure to fit in or be someone you're not, or please other people, or do something in someone else's vision. And to separate from that is a major act of courage that went through early on. There are some women I think we both work with that are just starting to realize that now, like in their 40s, 50s, right? That like, what
Yeah.
have I been doing this whole time, and who am I? And it is like a massive act of courage to step in and say, that path is not for me. And I'm going to have to admit that, not just to myself, but people who really care about me and want a different potential path for me. And now there's like proving to myself and proving to other people as
Yeah.
well that I can do
Yeah.
this.
I love that. Thank you for sharing yours too. I completely agree. It's the layeredness of all of the expectations, whether it's stated outright or not, you pick it up and you sense it. And, not to mention that there's dollars put behind your college education that you're like, wow, this is hard earned. So yes, there's pressure. And, I felt innately that if I didn't share where I really wanted to go, that it would be a disservice to everyone, because eventually I would find my way. I would just
Mm-hmm.
be prolonging it for myself. And to your point about women that find it later in life, great. Whenever you find it is when you find the courage to act. And I would say just, take that next step forward. And for me, that looked like saying, hey, I'm going to get my PhD in organizational psychology. Now, look, the pleasing side of me, Mara, is like, yes, I'm still getting a higher degree and I am
Right.
a doctor, just not a medical one.
That's right.
And so I entered into a graduate program that was all practitioner based in organizational psychology. And it didn't take me long to find that my superpower of being insanely curious about people combined with my ability to ask really tuned in, powerful questions is where I made the biggest impact as a coach. So I noticed that early on and decided to double down on that in all of the corporate experiences that I had.
Yeah, yeah, great. We are reaching an ad break. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, let's dig into like now, how does that connect to this aligned mindset idea that you've been putting together for a while now into a book? You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Sohee Jun, the author of The Aligned Mindset. We air on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can find us right now, if you're listening to us, live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and several other locations at talkradio.nyc. And we'll be right back with our guest in just a moment.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Sohee Jun, and with her new book that just came out today, The Aligned Mindset, that I'm so excited to get into. So in your book, you have 6 unhelpful mindsets that hold people back, and especially women. And what I'm wondering about is how did you come up with these mindsets? Before we get into the mindsets, how did you come up with them? Did you experience them yourself? And then when you list them out, I'm going to see how many I check off for myself early in my career.
I love that. You sure you want to do that test now?
Let's see how vulnerable I can be.
So yes, I list 6 because it's a combination of really noticing. I'm a theme maker, themes jump out at me. That's one of my superpowers. And I noticed in my years of coaching, both in what women told me they wanted coaching around, whether they were aware of it, and also anecdotally noticing, oh wow, the slate of my coaching clients have said that they are dealing with imposter syndrome or the people pleasing or wrapped up in fear. And it's getting curious to what was being presented to me through the coaching and definitely through my lived experience. I would be lying if I didn't say that I have felt every one of those listed in the book. So it's through the coaching, it's my own lived experience, and it's also through the research that I did for the making of the book. It was a 2-year process, and I researched highly successful women. There were 2 rounds of surveys that I did, and what I noticed is this theme around mindset, not surprisingly. And, not surprisingly, the zeitgeist was talking about the power of the mindset, and really there was just more and more conversations being had around it. So I knew that there was something there that got me super curious to dive deeper. So that's how it became about the aligned mindset.
Nice. Okay, let's get into it. What's unhelpful? Tell us the 6 mindsets and just a little bit about what each means.
Yeah, so the first that I list here, and I happen to have the book right in front of me. It's like my companion. It goes with me everywhere I go.
Nice.
And I will say, bear with me for a second.
Yeah.
The first is the overachiever mindset. So these mindsets that I list in the book, they overlap and there's interplay between all of them. And I'll try to get as distinct as I can with defining them. The overachiever mindset is all about doing more, faster, bigger, and really this mindset has a hard time slowing down enough to say, wow, that was a great job. Let me honor that, it's now I need to slow it down, take in the wins. It's always on to the next. And I know early on in my career, and a lot of high achieving women, they do that constantly to get to the next thing and the bigger thing and the bigger corner office and the bigger title, which I have found that leads to burnout pretty quickly. And I'm sure that you've had clients come to you and go, you know what, Mira, I'm dealing with burnout. And this mindset is a big contributor to that.
Yeah. And to sort of differentiate this a little bit for our audience, yes, there are plenty of overachiever men. This is a society of overachievers, right? Like the US is a society of, productivity, success, accolades, recognition, all of that stuff is in our water, right?
Yes.
And at the same time, for women and marginalized people who are constantly told that they aren't good enough or they need to do more to be considered at the same level, we end up hyperachieving, like going well above and beyond just to be considered at the same level that people from a dominant culture are considered in the in this country. And so that is a recipe for burnout, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you're working twice as hard to be considered, to prove yourself, to prove your worth, all of that stuff, what a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out that it is very US specific, and I would agree with you there. And how many things, posts, or people do we see talking about it's okay to give yourself rest? I mean, that's there for a reason because we are absolutely burning it on both ends. And I share a story about a time in which I was leading the biggest team, the domestic OD and change management team in my corporate life. I had the corner office, had it all. I had 3 young children. I mean, I still have children, but they were younger time. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to overachieve. That mindset was full throttle, Mira. And I said, I'm going to coach my daughter's soccer team.
Oh
I'm
my
also
gosh.
going to do all the things at home and lead the team and work 60 whatever hours. And you better believe I was brink of burnout if I hadn't, if that wasn't already the case. And so again, this is why I know intimately what it looks like and how burnout presents itself. And so that is what I want to help women undo and really redo that wiring.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we get to the second one, is there a cost to the unwiring?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. Unpack it a little bit more.
Once you learn what it takes to quote unquote succeed, right?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden you say no,
Mhm.
no more. I have boundaries. I'm setting boundaries. At some level within a woman's career, you get backlash for that. You get questioned, you are negatively judged unnecessarily, right? For just putting up some boundaries, for just trying to manage your burnout. So I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I will counter that with I think that more people end up respecting the women that put up boundaries. And the cost is a dip in your own self-esteem as you work with a coach or somebody to rewire that. It doesn't feel good. It feels very like you're going into like a new world that is like, what is at the end of this? And so the external accolades might disappear, except that people, if you lead a team, whether you lead a team or not, in the workplace, you're around people, they see what you're doing. And the generation that is, coming up in the workforce, they absolutely, and this is anecdotal, but what I know is they appreciate the boundaries. And so I think the cost is immediately to your own ego and your own way of doing things that feels super uncomfortable. But ultimately, you do earn the respect of people that are like, oh, okay, well, she's not going to work on the weekends. I can respect that. The harshest critic is our own selves and our own minds.
Mm. I love that. I've been there. I totally can agree with and resonate with that experience after, learning how to be incredibly focused on my own boundary setting and do it well. And I've experienced, the shift is that the spaces that are healthiest for me will respect those boundaries, and the ones that are not, goodbye. They're not healthy for me, and I don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mira, I love that you're doing the work too. And the goodbyes are not easy, right? It's because it's like, wow, that habit or that person or that thing I was engaging in, even though it's healthy to say no and draw some boundaries, whether it's work hours or no to an extra project, what have you, it's hard. And that's what I want everyone listening to know, that this is a journey. And even though on this side of it, and I'd love to hear your take on it, I'm better at boundaries than I've ever been. I still will miss it. And I still will be like, oh, crap, I should have said no because I need the time to do something else. And guess what? When you're drawing boundaries, what I know to be true and what I coach around is self-compassion as well. We need hefty, hefty doses of self-compassion, which I've had to learn because it was not something that a tool, a skill set that I grew up with.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also I find that the self-compassion is hardest when there's somebody that that's important to me, for example, who's disappointed with the boundaries I have set. And then I'm my worst critic, and I have to sort of really ground myself and remind myself, this is about their disappointment, but it's also about my needs. There's two people in this equation, right? I noticed that we're reaching an ad break. I can't believe that we're already reaching another ad break. We're so into this. Before we get to the ad break, let us know mindset number 2. And when we come back, we're going to dive into mindset number 2.
Mindset number 2, drum roll, is the perfectionist mindset. Oof.
Yes. Yep.
The big one.
Yes. All right, everybody. We are reaching our ad break. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Sohee Jun, author of The Aligned Mindset. You can comment right now and ask us any questions as we're live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, or other locations at talkradio.nyc. And otherwise, we'll be right back with our guest in just a moment.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Sohee Jun. We are talking about the Aligned Mindset, which is her new book, and she's outlining the 6 unhelpful mindsets before you get to an aligned mindset. And we're at number 2, perfectionism. This is something that I think we hear a lot about. Tell me a little bit about it from your perspective.
Yeah, so this is the mindset that compels you to get into the weeds, that compels you to hold on a little too long to perhaps that email, reviewing it, making sure every single word is right, or a project timeline detail, for example, and you make sure Now, there's nothing wrong with looking for accuracy and making sure that the intention behind a message is there, and I'm just using those as examples. I think it's a slippery slope when we are operating out of this mindset and you feel that you're the only one that can get it right, that you'll just take it on because no one can do it better than you. And especially as a leader, you're diving into the weeds of things that perhaps you hired your employees to do, and you shouldn't really be operating at that level. So it's this drive to get detailed minutia just right, just perfect in a vision that you only have in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which means it's going to be hard for people to ever meet that vision, right? And from a clinical so Sohee is an organizational psychologist, IO psychologist, and coming from a clinical psychology perspective, so more from like mental health and those kind of things. And perfectionism is not a diagnosis, and it's not a mental health condition, but it's on your way to OCD. And the sort of the root of it is anxiety or fear of losing control, being scrutinized, being questioned, fear of not knowing. There's a lot of root causes to how perfectionism develops. And for me, I remember disrupting it for myself when it got in my way by having a sticker right in front of me for and then eventually became a mantra in my head for 10 years. Good enough is good enough, Mira, let it go. Good enough is good enough. Send it off, get some feedback, move it along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it really did help because nothing bad happened. I just had to sort of expose myself to that.
Yeah, I love that method because one, it's you playing with it. Okay, let me actually try it out. First of all, the mantra is I recommend anyone to have a mantra that they can go to on the ready when they see themselves in this space, because it can, when you repeat it and it's something you're aware of, to say to yourself, this is all the mindset work, right? It's like when you can and start to rewrite that story, it does start to shift things. And for you, it took that. And by the way, this is like, again, a journey that to undo this type of thinking and thinking that adds value. So another way of, to reframe it is, how you define value and how you contribute in the workplace or wherever you're at, and doing the work there as well.
Love it. Yes. All right. Number 3, what you got?
Number 3, the should mindset.
Tell us more about that.
Myself included, what I notice when I paid attention to how women talk is about, oh gosh, I should do this. I should go to this happy hour. I should go to this work function. I should take on this project. I should. And the second phrase of that, you know what's coming, is that they don't really innately align to it. One, it doesn't give them energy, or they're not passionate about it, or they're flat out tired and don't want to do the thing. But the should is compelling them to do it because there's a big tether of guilt wrap around that,
Yes.
of this innate or this mindset of, if I don't do this, then I won't be a good worker, friend, partner, daughter, mom, what have you. And it drives one to overperform and overdo again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking the word obligation when you were describing it. Like you're doing it out of obligation instead of out of this is aligned with my interest, my passion, the things I care about, or how I want to show up in the world. No, instead it's out of obligation to others, but there's not like sort of and I'm going to get something out of this too.
Yeah, which is a framing that we haven't yet built the muscle around, to be honest, in terms of, I get to get something out of this too. Both things can exist. And I'm a big believer of the yes and, which is a play on improv, which is yes, that can exist, and something else can be true. So it really is kind of a binary thinking of like, oh, I should do it, I'm just going to do it. And you guilt yourself, kind of whip yourself into doing something that is depleting and, to your point, not aligned.
And it brings resentment, right? If you're doing it and you can't find an and, right? Like I should do this and I'm going to do it because I care. Like, oh, I should go get, and pick up my child from whatever, like, but if it's coming only out of obligation, you end up being resentful. Other people end up seeing or feeling that anyway. So everybody loses,
Everybody loses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's something I want to offer for people to consider around the should mindset if they find themselves mired in it. It's really to be thinking about the energy that in terms of how you show up when you are showing up from a should mindset, it does everyone a disservice versus when you are aligned with whatever that task or event is. And it might be a little bit of should anyway, but like you show up so differently energetically, which is a win-win for everyone, versus if you're driven more by shoulds, you're just kind of mailing it in, right? Most of the time. And so you're not showing up as the person you want to be anyway in service of anything. So really kind of thinking through that and feeling through that.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Number 4.
Number 4, the not good enough yet mindset. And so this one presents itself like this. Mira, I really am, I want to go do a speech, but I don't think I'm ready. Like, I don't know. I think I need a degree. I think I need to take a class. I think I need to do more to be ready to do the thing. And play out so often in women playing small, thinking they have to get an extra degree or somebody else's advice or another certificate before they take the step forward. And let's be clear, I think this is very much a female challenge, in that, as I've coached men too, the tendency for men is to raise their hand and to do it, even if they have the degree or not, because just because they think they can do it and build the plane as they go type of thing. So it is this kind of like, oh gosh, I'm going to stop myself. I'm not going to give myself, I'm not degreed or knowledgeable yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like a lot of these, again, come from how we're socialized. If you go back to kind of what we were talking about earlier, if I have to work twice as hard to be acknowledged, valued, appreciated, recognized, put in a position of promotion, etc., then I am going to go above and beyond to be seen in that way. And but at some point, you are actually successful. You did the thing, and then you continue to do that. And then all of a sudden, when an opportunity presents itself and you're actually quite ready, you've been more than prepared, more than ready, that women will be more likely to say, but I don't have that one certificate that would help me be even more prepared.
Yeah, yeah. And let me be clear that this isn't about being prepared for a thing. For example, let's take like presenting. Early in my career, I over anchored into preparation so much so that I would miss special events. So I was just like, I'm just going to do like 80 hours of preparation, which was really driven by this, I'm not good enough yet. And it's that balance of yes, prepare and yes, do your homework and know when that's enough. And that is a healthy mindset versus being driven by, oh no, one more thing, exactly to what you're saying. I need more accolades. I need more degrees, notches of whatever that looks like for you before I do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, number five.
This one's a big one, and it is a undercurrent for probably all of the other ones, which is the fear mindset. And it is when it goes really big. I have an acronym for fear, which isn't my own, but it is so powerful. It is false events appearing real.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one.
Yeah, and I know you've probably heard that before, so it's not mine. And I think it's a powerful way of like when our mind goes big and we make a decision based on that big amplified, what if? What if I get fired because I raise my hand? What if I can't ever find another job? And so I'm never going to move from this role. What if, when I raise my hand for that project, I don't get it and I just don't want to feel that shame. I don't want to take that risk. So fear and shame are really kind of tied together in this mindset. And it's when we go big in that fear and let our decisions be ruled by that way of thinking.
Yeah, and absolutely. And so in the world of clinical psychology, we might call that catastrophizing.
Yes.
Sort of over worrying to the point where it's well beyond what is actually in front of you that you're facing. And that is actually a normal human reaction to many things, is that we sort of have a tendency to over anticipate all of the what ifs, trying to prepare and be ready for the worst. But our worst in our heads is way worse usually than what actually can happen in those kinds of situations.
Yeah, we have, as I love to say, our brains are so powerful. And sometimes if it's unruly, it goes really, really big in all the negative aspects.
That's right. That's right. Okay, number 6.
The last one is the play nice mindset. And in other words, it's the people pleasing mindset. And we touched on this earlier. It's driven by the desire to have people not be upset with us, to put their needs above our own. And I know this is pervasive for so many women. I've been mired in it at times, and it is a tricky one because we think we're just nice. Like I don't have any needs. I'm just gonna do what they say because I like them. So it's big, and so that's the play nice mindset.
Yeah, and this one is again like one of these tricky things that it works well earlier in your career, because earlier in our careers, people are assessing like, can she be a team player? Can she, can we trust her to trust anybody to work well in the workplace with other people? So we're trying to be nice. And it does cause some contorting. And at some point, it holds you back from being more competitive, to stepping up, to playing so nice that you just step back instead of continuing to step forward.
Yeah. There's a number of ramifications from this mindset, which is one, I think it erodes trust over time in the workplace. When we placate and we are afraid of setting boundaries or saying yes to the right things, no to the things that we don't align on, it gets to one, a lack of trust for yourself, for being able to not being able to honor your own boundaries. And I think that people will see you as just like, just throw it to Sohee, she'll do it anyway, type of thing, where you kind of lose credibility and respect if you're over indexing in that way.
That's brilliant. And it reminds me of, I did a couple of interviews with Dr. Tony Zeiss, who at the time that I did the interview, she was the highest ranking mental health officer within the Department of Veterans Affairs that was also a psychologist and also a woman. And she said, I learned that it's being kind that's important, not being nice. So I'm kind, not necessarily nice. And that I never heard the distinction until she explained that.
And being kind means you're clear and direct. And this is pulling from the work of Brene Brown, which is there's a way to communicate that allows you to clear and also kind. So yeah, this is a big one. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, we're reaching an ad break. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Sohee Jun. And now that we've gotten through her 6 unhelpful mindsets, when we come back, we're getting to the helpful one, the aligned mindset that she wrote about. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Dr. Sohee Jun, who is the author of The Aligned Mindset. We just went through 6 unhelpful mindsets, and here we are, drum roll please, we're getting to the aligned mindset. Sohee, tell us a little bit about this. What is it?
The aligned mindset is one in which your inner narrative and the way that you frame a situation is supportive of how you want to show up. And whether that's you want to be bold or you want to be more clear and kind, your brain and the ways that it supports you in that action is aligned. So it's similar to when I've heard this quote from Gandhi, I think. It's when your thoughts, your actions, and what you say are all aligned. Mm-hmm. So it is that essence that when you can align your mindset in supportive of how you want to be in the world, it's very, very powerful.
It is really powerful, and it sounds easy. It's not easy. So tell us, how do we slowly move from any one of these mindsets, unhelpful mindsets, or all of them, into a more and more aligned mindset? What does it take?
Yeah, your listeners today get the privilege of getting the framework that's in the book. And there are 4 steps. And to your point, 4 steps is not a lot. And it's really intentional and it takes a lot of repetition to do. So the first step is not surprising, but awareness. Create awareness about what you're telling yourself, how you're framing the situation, the meaning you're making up about a person. Mm-hmm. Are you judging that person? If so, why? What's the story behind that? Because Also, when we're doing it to other people, it can damage relationships in the workplace. So that's a part of the thread of becoming aware. But more importantly, get insanely curious, Mira, about what is the brain saying about yourself. So for example, if I'm about to go into a meeting and it's with high-level executives, if I'm unaware that my brain is like, oh God, you are not ready. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. And if I'm not aware of that, I will show up half of how I want to and intend to, and certainly not dynamic and bold and confident. If we are insanely aware that our brain is doing that, then we can take the steps to reframe it, which now I'm jumping ahead in the framework, but let me step back to say step one, awareness. Get insanely curious about the narrative, the stories in your brain. The second then is to identify it. Okay, so is this people pleasing right now? Is it a multivariate mindset? Am I acting out of fear? Try to give it a name so you can work with it.
Mhm.
Then the third is to identify what is that micro step forward. So what's that action that you can take? And perhaps in the example of presenting to the executives, it's going, okay, my brain is going crazy. I'm going to identify that right now it's really loud with fear, and I'm going to tell myself that I can do it anyway. They know me. I've rehearsed. I'm ready. I know my statistics. I know the main messages. I can do this. So it's like telling yourself a more supportive framing and then taking that step forward, breathing, going into the room, and being more confident than if you were unaware. That's the third step, is taking that micro step forward. And by the way, I say micro step really intentionally because people get overwhelmed and thinking, oh my God, I have to do everything all at once. And where do I begin? And I don't know. So micro step is really intentional and important. And the fourth thing is to really reward yourself. Give yourself the kudos for getting curious about what your mindset is doing, for taking the supportive action forward, for reframing those critical thoughts. And the reward part is something that a lot of people skip. Not a big deal, just move on. But that's really important to solidify that repetitive behavior and the one that muscle that you want to build.
I love this. And if we're sort of mapping it on to sort of some clinical psychology concepts, it's number one, very similar to some concepts around cognitive behavioral therapy, right? You are sort of evaluating and slowing down enough to know what your thoughts and reactions are, and then using that information to say, what would I be doing differently to disrupt or change? And micro steps, I love it. That is so important for behavior change because most people jump too fast and too big and then get discouraged and say, forget it, that didn't work. Micro steps, I think, sort of like helps to build tiny habits into bigger habits, atomic habits, right? Into bigger habits. And then the reward piece, which so many frameworks do not include, but is so critical, is all about reinforcement, right? Mm-hmm. Like, am I reinforcing the behaviors? Or did I say, well, I tried it and it was hard and it didn't work, so I'm not going to try it again? Or questioning yourself or judging yourself for it not being perfect. Well, that's repeating your old habits when you're trying to disrupt it. And so that reward or reinforcement is so critical to behavior change. So I think if you pull it all together, like, this was a lot. What is one thing that you want people to be able to take away from today's conversation to just like get started in disrupting kind of their old unhelpful patterns?
Yes, I love that question. For anyone interested in doing this work, I want them to, one, get the book and start getting insanely curious about their mindset out of the 6. So start there. It really does start from a place of awareness and getting the reason why I keep saying getting curious, because it opens up a world of questions that perhaps you haven't asked yourself, or that opens up other thoughts and perspectives. So I would say start with awareness, get insanely curious about your mindset is the first place to start.
Excellent, excellent. Sorry, I was on the mute button because I was trying to share also a little bit about you. Where can people find you? Those of you who are watching live right now, I have her webpage up, but for those of you who are listening, where can they find you?
They can find me obviously through my website, and I'm really active on LinkedIn. I have Instagram, so they can find me there. However, I don't really answer DMs. So LinkedIn and my website to reach out directly.
Excellent. And that is Sohee Jun, Soheejun. And you can find her there at LinkedIn, or soheejunphd.com is where you can find her on her website.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, what did you take away? And more importantly, what is one small change that you can implement this week based on what you learned from Sohee, or what you'll be reading from her book that you will definitely be buying? Share it with us on LinkedIn at Mira Brancu or Sohee Jun, or at talkradio.nyc so we can cheer you on. We're also on other social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, everywhere. So find us, leave a review to help with visibility and reach. The stuff that we talk about on this show is also part of the work that we do with our strategic leadership pathway roadmap at TowerScope. You can check us out at gotowerscope.com. And thank you, talkradio.nyc, for hosting. Thank you for joining us today with our guest, Dr. Sohee Jun. Sohee, thank you so much. We really appreciated having you on today.
Thank you for having me. It's been so fun. Thanks, Mira.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day wherever you're tuning in from. Bye, everybody.
Bye.